Hi, everyone. Have you ever heard that the Mount Sinai where Moses received the Ten Commandments and the Exodus sites are not in Egypt, but in Saudi Arabia? This claim has been known for a while, but because Saudi Arabia is an Islamic country, these sites are not fully accessible to the public yet. Additionally, tourism infrastructure is not yet fully developed, making a tour of Mount Sinai somewhat challenging. Today, based on my personal experiences traveling through Saudi Arabia, I'm going to share some practical tips to help you explore these historical sites without the need for a travel agency. Most of these sites are scattered throughout the Tabuk province in northwestern Saudi Arabia. To get there, you can fly to Tabuk from King Khalid International Airport in Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia. The flight takes about 2 hours and 5 minutes. For those flying in, it's convenient to book a rental car online. I recommend a 4x4 vehicle for navigating the desert terrain. Here are a few important tips to keep in mind during your journey. First, avoid driving on desert sand paths if possible. We once tried it out of curiosity and ended up getting stuck for hours. Not a fun experience, but definitely something we'll laugh about later. But don't panic if your car breaks down. The local residents and police are very friendly and will help you out. Most of the roads to the historical sites are now paved, so you shouldn't encounter major problems. However, opting for a 4x4 vehicle can be helpful, just in case. Secondly, before driving on desert sand paths, it's recommended to slightly lower your tire pressure. Reducing it to around 15 to 20 psi can improve traction in the sand. Once you're back on solid ground, remember to reinflate them to the normal pressure. Here's a list of items you'll need for your trip. Icebox or lightweight aluminum cooler and ice packs. There are hardly any restaurants near the historical sites, except in Tabuk City, so it's a good idea to prepare packed meals in advance. Since Saudi Arabia is extremely hot, keeping your food in a cooler is crucial. If you're staying at a hotel with breakfast included, you can ask the front desk to prepare a packed meal the day before to take with you. Sunglasses, sunscreen, and a hat. The sun in Saudi Arabia is very strong, so don't forget these essentials. Light hiking boots. These are really necessary when climbing to Elijah's Cave and Mount Sinai, as the terrain is very rocky and rugged. Hiking gloves. There are thorny bushes along the paths to Elijah's Cave and Mount Sinai. Backpack. The climbs to Elijah's Cave and Mount Sinai involve steep and challenging paths. Make sure to bring a backpack, but keep it light to avoid getting tired quickly during the long hike. Hiking poles. These are helpful, especially when descending, as the rocky terrain can make the trails slippery. Water. It's pretty hot, so make sure to bring plenty of water. One helpful tip is to drop water bottles at strategic points along your route, especially when climbing Mount Sinai. This ensures you'll have enough water when descending from your climb. Warm clothing. Mornings and evenings can get unexpectedly chilly, so pack some warm clothes. Toilet paper and liquid soap. Most local gas station restrooms in Saudi Arabia lack soap and toilet paper, and the facilities can be quite basic. 1 or 2 spare tires, always good to have in case of a flat. Shovel, useful if your car gets stuck in the sand. Headlamp to free your hand, essential if it gets dark while you're descending from Mount Sinai, not needed if you're not hiking. First aid kit. Bring band-aids, antibiotic ointment, antiseptics, and pain relievers. Make sure bring antidiarrheal medication also. The water in Saudi Arabia can sometimes cause stomach issues, so it's best to be prepared. Here are some things to consider and prepare before your trip. The best times to visit Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia are from October to November and from March to April. Summer, from June to August, is extremely hot and dry, making it unsuitable for travel. Winter conditions. From December to February, it can snow and the weather can be quite cold, so pack accordingly. Hotel bookings. Winter is peak season in Saudi Arabia, so it can be difficult to find hotel accommodations. It's best to book in advance. Alternative accommodations. Airbnb is a more affordable option, though the facilities might not be as high-end. Before heading out on your trip, I recommend watching these 2 YouTube videos about Mount Sinai and its surrounding historical sites, which can be very helpful. I've also uploaded a PDF file containing the GPS coordinates of Mount Sinai's historical sites and all the travel information. You can download it from the link in the description below. Here's a suggested itinerary for a 6-day, 5-night trip. Day 1. Departure to Tabuk. Driving from Riyadh to Tabuk takes about 14 hours, including fuel stops. If you're flying, it takes around 2 hours and 5 minutes. After arriving in Tabuk, make sure you rest because the following days will involve several hours of driving and strenuous hiking up rocky mountains. If you have an extra day, it's a good idea to visit the Tabuk fortress and the Tabuk Hijaz railway station in the city. On the second day, visit the altar of the Golden Calf, the burial site of 3,000 people, Moses' altar, the 12 pillars, and Elijah's cave. On the third day, head to the Red Sea crossing site, the Rock of Rephidim, Moses' well and Jethro's cave in Al-Bad. On the fourth day, explore Magna Oasis and Tayyib al-Izm, believed to be Elim. The fifth day is dedicated to climbing Mount Sinai. Since climbing Elijah's cave can be quite strenuous, it's best not to plan your climb of Mount Sinai immediately afterward. Allow a couple of days in between for rest. On the sixth day, depart for Riyadh. From 2019 to 2022, we made 4 trips to the Mount Sinai region in Saudi Arabia. Now, I'm excited to share the photos, videos, and various materials I gathered during these trips. Are you ready? Let's start with the details of Day 2. From our hotel, the Swiss Inn in Tabuk City, it took about an hour and a half to reach the altar of the Golden Calf. As we got closer, we felt a mix of excitement and reverence. Seeing the altar of the Golden Calf in person, after only seeing it in YouTube videos, was an incredible experience. This is the place where the Israelites worshipped the Golden Calf, while Moses was on Mount Sinai receiving God's commandments. As you can see, the altar of the Golden Calf is surrounded by a fence, and a sign in both English and Arabic warns that this is an archaeological site, and unauthorized entry can be punished under the royal decree concerning archaeological sites and museums. Inside the fence, there are quite a few rocks with petroglyphs carved into them. Interestingly, the cow petroglyphs here resemble those found only in ancient Egypt. In Egypt, they worship the bull god Apis and the cow goddess Hathor, both known for their distinctive spotted patterns. It's fascinating to see these Egyptian-style carvings here in Saudi Arabia. It's believed that this might be where the Golden Calf idol was placed. Even outside the fence, you can spot petroglyphs here and there. If you turn away from the altar of the Golden Calf and look into the distance, you can see a mountain with a blackened top as if it has been burned. This is Jabal Maqla, the second highest peak of Mount Sinai. I'll call it Jabal Maqla B. If you look at around the 2 to 3 o'clock direction, you can see Elijah's cave. The cave is located below large rocks that jut out at the top of the mountain. After visiting the altar of the Golden Calf, we headed to the site of the graves of the 3,000. We drove about 4 miles north from the altar of the Golden Calf, then turned left onto a sandy path. When driving on sandy paths, it's crucial to keep moving to avoid getting stuck. We didn't realize that deflating the tires a bit could help prevent getting stuck in the sand. As a result, we ended up bogged down. Fortunately, some passing Saudi youths helped us get out of the sand. By using a shovel and the driver's seat floor mat, you can easily get out of a sand pit. After the tour, when returning to flat ground, don't forget to reinflate the tires to their normal pressure, unless you've been driving on a paved road the whole time. After driving a bit further, we finally reached the site of the graves of the 3,000. To our surprise, there was a road nearby. We went through all that trouble on the sandy path without realizing there was a paved road nearby. It could have been frustrating, but it ended up being more fun. The site of the graveyard of the 3,000 is surrounded by a fence with warning signs prohibiting entry. In Exodus 32:28, it mentions that 3,000 Israelites who worshipped the Golden Calf were executed by the Levites. It is believed that this is where they were buried. The gate to the graveyard was locked and had warning signs, so we couldn't go inside. However, we managed to see some standing stones through a binocular. This photo, taken with a drone, shows the scattered standing stones. These stones provide crucial evidence of the burial practices used by the Israelites at that time. On Day 3, you will visit the cave of Jethro, which has a small exhibition room at its entrance. When we were there, a particular photo caught my eye. The photo looked like an image I had seen in a YouTube video. According to the description in the exhibition room, this is a prehistoric site dating back to the Neolithic era, from around 4,500 to 9,000 BC. And it says scrapers, various stone tools, and other lithic artifacts are scattered across the surface of the archaeological site. However, the Exodus period is from 1446 to 1406 BC, which is the Bronze Age, so the description in this exhibition room does not quite match. Nevertheless, from the photos we took with the drone, we can see scattered standing stones which suggest that this could have been a burial site for the Israelites. This is because the era of standing stones is known to be the Bronze Age, not the Neolithic era as described in this exhibition room. Entering the road, we return to the village where the altar of the golden calf is located to go to the place where Moses' altar and the 12 pillars representing the 12 tribes of the Israel. We parked behind the village and walked along. We could see where the fence has collapsed. The Saudi government has fenced off the entrances to Mount Sinai and Moses' altar, but some of the fence had already collapsed. After walking up the dry mountain valley for about 10 minutes, a large rock appears to the left. There, you can clearly see petroglyphs of cattle and people dancing. From there, it's another 10 to 15 minutes to reach the place with Moses' altar and the 12 pillars. Wow! We've arrived at the site where Moses built the altar. It is said that, originally buried in the sand, this site was discovered by Saudi authorities during an exploration for gold, where they found remains and bones of animals. According to Exodus 24:4, before going up Mount Sinai to receive the word of God, Moses built an altar at the foot of the mountain and set up 12 stone pillars representing the 12 tribes of Israel. Here, there were pillars made of white marble, but only 9 remain today. While descending Mount Jabal Maqla on the 5th day of our tour, we found rocks with marble embedded in them. This photo shows a structure where animal sacrifices were made. Right next to Moses' altar, there is now a dry valley. In Saudi Arabia, water occasionally fills these valleys due to intermittent winter rain and snowfall in northern regions. Given that water could have gathered in the valley, it is plausible that the young men sent by Moses, as described in Exodus 24 verse 5, could have washed the parts of the sacrificial animals before offering them, further supporting the idea that Mount Sinai in Saudi Arabia is the most suitable location for the real Mount Sinai. When we visited in early March, we confirmed that there was water in the upper part of the valley. After seeing Moses' altar, if you walk towards the mountain, you'll arrive at the mountainside where Elijah's cave is located. While it may not look too difficult to climb from below, it's actually a very challenging climb. In 1 Kings 19, the prophet Elijah, fleeing Jezebel's threats, walked for 40 days and nights until he reached a cave on Mount Horeb, the mountain of God. The mountain where Elijah's cave is located, to the right of Mount Maqla, is considered to be Mount Horeb. As I mentioned earlier, Elijah's cave is visible from the place where the golden calf altar is located. Let me show you the circled area. Saudi Arabia's strong sun can make any hike a challenge, so come prepared with plenty of water and start early in the morning when climbing to Elijah's cave. The trail is moderate to challenging, taking approximately 2 hours and 40 minutes round trip. With steep and rugged paths, you'll need to be in good shape. Descending requires extra caution due to loose rocks. It's recommended to descend in a zigzag manner instead of straight down to avoid toenail injuries like we encountered. As you ascend towards the cave, it's easy to veer off course and end up going in the wrong direction. In fact, we experienced this ourselves when we first tried to find the cave, and ended up not reaching our destination and had to descend without achieving our goal. At one point during our ascent, we veered off to the left of the cave. After reaching the point where we couldn't proceed due to a massive rock cliff blocking access to Elijah's cave on the right side, we had no choice but to descend without reaching our destination. The following year, we attempted the climb again and managed to find our way there. However, another challenge awaited us. A treacherous path blocked our access to the cave below. A large boulder lay in our path, making it difficult to ascend easily. While I usually have no fear of heights and climb high places, without hesitation, the steepness of this spot brought a dizzying sense of fear. The others who climbed with me were also frightened and hurried down. So, despite being so close to the summit, we had to descend once again. During this trip, only 2 brave souls from our group managed to ascend the cave. When we ventured to Tabuk for the second time, we didn't even know the best way to reach Mount Sinai's summit. We started from Moses' altar and walked along the valley, heading towards the blackened summit of the mountain in the distance. That mountain turned out to be Jabal Maqla. The path was way more challenging than we had imagined, with massive rocks filling the valley and making every step a struggle. One of our friends had a particularly rough time because she was carrying a large bag instead of a backpack. Climbing the valley with such a heavy load was definitely not easy. After about 4 hours, we got closer to the base of Mount Sinai. Unfortunately, it was already past midday, so we had to turn back before it got dark and were unable to reach the summit. It was disappointing, but safety came first. Despite the difficulties, discovering water pools in the valley during our climb was a rewarding experience. In early March, the lower parts of the riverbed were dry, but as we ascended, we encountered pools of water from winter snow and rain. Seeing water in Saudi Arabia, outside of an oasis, is a rare and unusual sight, and it made the trip even more exciting. However, more than discovering the water pools, what delighted me most was finding almond trees as we walked along the valley. It's rare to see flowers in the Saudi desert, but there were several almond trees in full bloom with pink flowers. The blossoms and leaves of the almond tree were truly beautiful. These almond blossoms were similar to cherry blossoms or apricot flowers. I never imagined encountering such beautiful flowers in these rugged mountains. However, it's not surprising since the locals call this mountain Jabal Maqla, which means almond mountain in Arabic. The almond tree is significant in the Bible, representing the leadership of Moses and Aaron. God affirmed the leadership of Moses and Aaron by causing almond flowers to bloom on Aaron's staff. According to Numbers 17:8, the next day Moses entered the tent of the testimony and saw that Aaron's staff, which represented the house of Levi, had not only sprouted, but had budded, blossomed, and produced almonds. NIV. Additionally, the lamps on the lampstand in the tabernacle were made in the shape of almond flowers. In the photo my friend took, you can see leaves, flowers, and almonds together. On the morning of the third day, we headed towards the Gulf of Aqaba, which is believed to be the Red Sea where Moses had parted the waters. It took about 2 hours and 45 minutes from Tabuk. While it's easy to find the location where Solomon erected pillars to commemorate the miracle of the Red Sea parting on the Egyptian side at Nuweiba beach, there are no markers on the Saudi coast. So, from the Gulf of Aqaba, we searched for a location along the coastline that could accommodate approximately 2 million people, the estimated number of Israelites who crossed the sea. In the past, Solomon is said to have erected a similar pillar in the Gulf of Aqaba to commemorate the crossing of the Red Sea. However, the Saudi government reportedly removed the pillar. Even though it's amazing to hear that remnants of Egyptian chariots and wheels were found in the sea where the crossing took place, buried in coral. Leaving behind the site of the miraculous crossing of the Red Sea, we headed to the rock at Rephidim. It's about a 30-minute drive from the point where the Red Sea crossing to the entrance of the path leading to the split rock at Rephidim. Do you remember the incident when the Israelites complained about the lack of water in the wilderness? God instructed Moses to strike the rock with his staff, and water gushed out abundantly. The rock at Rephidim is a massive rock about 50 feet high, equivalent to a 7 to 8-story building, located deep in the desert. To reach it, you need to turn off the highway at the point where Musk is visible and drive on a local road for about 30 minutes through the sandy path. When we last visited in 2022, road construction was underway, so it's expected to be much easier to access now. I've marked the coordinates from the entrance to the rock at Rephidim in the PDF file. Shortly after entering the local road, a Bedouin driving a pickup truck approached us and offered to take us to the split rock of Moses. After negotiating the price, we followed the Bedouin's pickup and safely arrived at the rock of Rephidim. However, as soon as we arrived, the Bedouin gestured, indicating that he had brought us here and now we were on our own, then simply turned around and left. Thankfully, we had marked the coordinates in advance. Otherwise, we might have been lost forever in the wilderness. As we made our way to the rock of Rephidim, a group of camels greeted us warmly against the backdrop of the Rocky Mountains in the Saudi desert. Just watching the camels stroll was enough to make my heart race. After driving through the desert for 30 minutes, the massive rock of Rephidim appeared right before us. Wow. Seeing the rock, which I had only seen in YouTube videos, in person, was truly moving. Staring at this massive rock, I couldn't help but be in awe of God's grandeur. Upon reaching the rock at Rephidim, the first thing that catches your eye is its imposing front face. We managed to climb this rock without much difficulty, but our friends found it challenging to ascend from this direction and unfortunately had to give up. When we returned the following year, climbing up from the back of the rock was much easier. I recommend climbing up from the back to capture the picturesque split in the middle of the rock in photos. It takes about 20 to 30 minutes to reach the rock, and while the climb isn't too difficult, it's a good idea to wear hiking or climbing shoes. The cleft of the rock is narrow enough for one person to pass through. This picture is the background image of the rock at Rephidim. Around the rock at Rephidim, you can see piles of stones. After the victory over the Amalekites, Moses, Aaron, and Joshua probably built an altar around here and proclaimed, "The Lord is my banner," which signifies victory. Exodus 17, 8-16. After touring the rock, we drove for about 30 minutes from Musk to Albad to see the well where Moses met his wife Zipporah. The Moses well is located in a small town, so we parked our car on the road in front of the archaeological site and were able to enter the site. In contrast to the restricted access of the Golden Calf altar and the graveyard of the 3000, this site was freely accessible, surrounded by a fence and still had a warning sign though. If you drive about 5 minutes from the area around Moses Well, you'll come across the sites of Jethro's dwelling and tomb caves on the opposite side of the road, near a gas station. This site is believed to be the dwelling and burial place of Jethro, the priest of Midian and Moses' father-in-law. Locals call this place Shuaib, or Jethro's cave. Shuaib is Jethro's name in Arabic, and the area contains approximately 30 large and small tombs, which are thought to belong to Jethro and his family. Note the site has different operating hours between weekdays and weekends. During our visit, Sunday through Thursday hours were 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., while weekends, Friday to Saturday, were from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. In Saudi Arabia, the weekend is from Friday to Saturday. At the entrance, there's a small exhibition hall that explains not only about this archaeological site, but also about Moses' well. It details how this is the land of Midian, where Moses fled from Egypt and met his wife Zipporah, and how Moses' father-in-law Jethro lived in this cave. After visiting those sites, we drove through the town and finally found a small restaurant in the village that served chicken. Worried about hygiene? Don't even think about it. Just dig in and enjoy. It tasted great. Day 4 could be well spent visiting the oasis in Magna and Elim at Tayyib al-Ism. According to Numbers 33:10, the Israelites camped near the Red Sea after leaving Elim. Elim, located at Tayyib al-Ism, is often visited by pilgrims along with the oasis in Magna. About 12.7 miles southeast of Elim, this Magna oasis boasts many palm trees and many springs also. It's possible that the Israelites stayed here near the Red Sea. Crossing the barren desert and wilderness, the sight of lush palm trees and springs welling up from the ground was truly refreshing and comforting. After exploring Magna, you may head north to visit Tayyib al-Ism. There, you'll find many palm trees and 12 wells, which is believed to be the place mentioned in the Bible. Exodus 15:27 states that they came to Elim, where there were 12 springs and 70 palm trees, and they camped there near the water. Tayyib al-Ism is a small village located about 4.4 miles east of Wadi Tayyib al-Ism, near the entrance to the Gulf of Aqaba, on the eastern coast of the Red Sea. The place is famous for its beautiful natural scenery due to the gorge and is known as a popular tourist spot. It is believed that Moses led the Israelites to this land of Midian after crossing the Red Sea, bringing them to what is now known as Moses' Valley, Valley of Moses. Elim is also thought to have been located in this area. Tayyib al-Ism is located approximately 12 miles or a 20-minute drive from Magna. However, accessing Tayyib al-Ism via the route along the Red Sea is currently prohibited, so you must detour through the town of Magna instead of taking the coastal road. If you are able to visit the site, park your vehicle at the entrance of Wadi Tayyib al-Ism and walk about 4 miles, approximately 2 hours and 30 minutes, to Tayyib al-Ism, which is believed to be the location of Elim. With 30 minutes at Elim, the total time from where you park to Elim is about 5 hours and 30 minutes. In 2021, following our visit to the site where Moses parted the Red Sea, we set off to visit Tayyib al-Ism. However, our plans were foiled when 2 soldiers blocked our car, and barricades were set up on the road leading to Wadi Tayyib al-Ism. Regrettably, we had to cancel our visit and leave the area. Currently, access is only allowed to those who have received special permission due to the NEOM project. Looking at pictures of a friend who visited the place a few years ago when there were no restrictions helps ease the disappointment. On the fifth day, we finally embarked on the highlight of our Mount Sinai tour, Jabal Maqla. It took us a total of 5 hours to reach the summit, with an elevation of 7,772 feet. We set out at 5 a.m. from Tabuk, passing by the Golden Calf altar on our way to the Mount Sinai. After navigating rugged terrain over the hill, we finally reached a spot where we could park our cars. To our surprise, there was a dirt road right nearby. It was quite an adventure for what seemed like a straightforward route. What a journey. Not only that, but another unexpected challenge awaited us. There was a Bedouin family camped there, and an elderly member of the family came out to block our way, requesting us not to drive through their living area for the sake of their safety. Although driving further and parking there would have saved us about 30 to 40 minutes of walking, we chose to respect his request. Thank God he allowed us to park in his camp area so that we could hike up to the foothills of Jabal Maqla. Despite the communication difficulties with the elder, we believe respecting their privacy is what a believer should do. I recommend that you park somewhere else for them. We walked up the rocky path to the foothills, feeling the cool morning air as dawn broke. Jabal Maqla, located in the Jabal al-Lawz mountain range, is named the Burned Mountain. Exodus 19:18 mentions, Mount Sinai was covered with smoke because the Lord descended on it in fire. It is presumed that Jabal Maqla's summit, with its burnt appearance, might be the Mount Sinai, mentioned in the Bible. Jabal Maqla, facing a valley, consists of 2 black-topped mountains. Jabal Maqla B, located in the same range as Elijah's cave, is situated at an elevation of 7,481 feet, while Jabal Maqla A stands higher at 7,772 feet. Therefore, it is more likely that Mount Sinai, where Moses received the 10 Commandments, is Jabal Maqla A. While most people climb and feature Jabal Maqla B in their YouTube videos, historian Josephus, who lived from AD 37 to 100, recorded in his work, The Antiquity of the Jews, that Mount Sinai is in the land of Midian, in Arabia, the highest mountain in the region of Arabian Midian. Therefore, the Mount Sinai, where Moses received the 10 Commandments, is more likely the Jabal Maqla A. However, as seen in the photos, the mountain is entirely covered in rocks and boulders, with no visible paths, making it very difficult to climb to the summit. Once on site, we started our walk toward the mountain at 7 a.m., but didn't return to our parked location until after 5 p.m. The mountain's steepness made the ascent challenging, and coming down was even more difficult as the terrain was covered in rocks and sand, making it easy to slip and slide. When climbing Mount Sinai, it is crucial to start descending from the summit before 1:30 p.m., as it takes a minimum of 3 hours to descend, ensuring you arrive back at your parking spot before sunset. The sun sets fast in the mountains, so it's important to descend without delay. The climb from the parking spot to the summit and back takes about 9 hours and 40 minutes, including short lunch breaks and time for photos. This rock was picked up from the summit of Mount Sinai. As you can see, the outside is black, but the inside is brown. In 2021, 4 of us were able to reach the summit of Jabal Maqla A by God's grace. The view from the summit of Mount Sinai was phenomenal. It's amazing how a mountain formed entirely of rocks can be so gorgeous. In 2022, when we returned, 8 people were able to reach the summit of the mountain. Unfortunately, due to a delayed departure, 3 of us had to descend at an elevation of 7,482 feet. Still, I couldn't just leave. Somehow, from this place where I felt God's presence, I wanted to praise the Lord.
Then sings my soul, my Savior God, to thee. How great thou art, how great thou art.
Even though we managed to depart the mountain as we had set, the shadows of darkness crept in closer and closer as we descended. Mount Sinai. It was truly a challenging adventure, but it has become a deeply meaningful experience in our lives, one that we will cherish forever. So, the special pilgrimage to Mount Sinai over 5 days and 6 nights has come to an end. Look back on the pilgrimage path we've walked together through the following videos, and feel those precious moments once again. I pray that the grace of the Lord will be with you all.